Good morning, and I do mean morning. I usually video my message on Saturday evenings or Saturday afternoons, but as it turns out, this Saturday afternoon and evening got very filled. So it's actually 7 a.m. on Sunday, and I hope to have this posted and online on YouTube by 10 o'clock. So anyway, good morning. I've got a lot to talk about today. Number one, Wednesday morning, a lady moved into the Rose Cottage, and there will be at least 2 more people move in. They aren't quite sure who or when yet, and maybe it's happened by now. I haven't talked to Krista since Friday. But at any rate, the first inhabitant of our Rose Cottage is a lady and is very pleased with her new home. So, to all of us, I don't know, I guess we should just feel satisfaction, great satisfaction, in the fact that in October we planted a seed of the possibility of working out a partnership with COTS. And then almost everybody contributed in one way or another, with their time, their talent, their thought, their treasures, their prayers, and their support. And last Saturday morning, COTS took possession of the Rose Cottage. And it's really, really quite lovely. Many of you came to our open house on Friday, and as I stop and think about it, I've been here for 20 years, and I think this is the most rewarding, the most valuable thing, or at least one of the most valuable things that Church of the Oaks as a community has provided for our social community. Hosting our 12-step groups, our weekly services and messages, our inquiring minds, and many other things, our Wednesday evening discussion group. But it seems like all the time, little steps, we're elevating our consciousness. I walked in the church this morning and I locked the front door that actually has cobwebs on the door handle, and this was laying all wrinkled up under the door. It says on it, intended for Church of the Oaks, continue doing great works. Cheers. I opened it up. It was $200. When you focus your efforts and your consciousness for the good of the whole, it elevates the consciousness of the whole. And it's as contagious as COVID. People you don't even know want to be part of it. I didn't get a chance to hear Michelle Obama this week. I'm going to try to find it. But evidently, from what little bits I've heard from people, she talked about depression. And I got to thinking about depression. You know, this is the year of transformation, and we're all learning to create a new normal. Well, this new normal is kind of presenting itself for us to deal with. shelter in place, masks, homeschooling, working from home. It's really inconvenient and uncomfortable. But I got to thinking, depression. 1930s, most of the 40s, at least half of the 40s, we went through another depression. It was filled with unemployment, Dust Bowl, it lasted for 15 years. And the thing that brought it out of that depression was leadership for our country and the rest of the world, in that we developed Social Security, unemployment. We developed government workforces like the 3 Cs and the WPA. Put people to work. And the thing that really helped the economy was the war. Well, it dawned on me, could we be going through another depression? A little different kind. The kind that really impacts all of society. But I think this is quite different. And I think we're going to have to deal with it in a different fashion, but it's going to require leadership. It's going to require effort. It's going to require accepting the fact that we, entitled Americans, are probably going to be uncomfortable for a while. We're going to have to go through the process of learning how to deal with a new, different normal. But I think what's going to bring us out of this depression is not another war that does nothing except make rich people filthier rich and the loss of millions of lives. I think the thing that will bring us out of this depression is the elevation of consciousness throughout the world. It's laying out there plain as the nose on our faces. That's what's required. We have to get in touch with our natural resources, all living things. We have to learn how to live together in harmony instead of rape, plunder, violence, and domination. The good of the whole, not just me. Several years ago, I did a investigation, I guess, and I looked up what scientists had to say about happiness. And I may have the name of the chemical wrong, but for the purpose of my message this morning, I think it's okay. Happiness is measured scientifically, mostly by the level of serotonin we have in our brains or our bodies. And they say there's like 4 different things that produce that elevated level of serotonin. Number 1 is humor. Laughing, it's good for you. But it's short-lived. When you're done laughing, you come back down. The second is gratitude. And they did a bunch of exercises with people in a controlled environment. They asked people to write a 300-word thank you note to someone they knew or what that someone had meant in their life. And then they had that person read that thank you note to the person it was intended for. They noticed that the serotonin levels raised hugely and stayed up for a very long time. Another way that we realize happiness or our serotonins is to engage in what gives us pleasure or is one of our passions, and work at it. And the satisfaction that we derive from that engagement in whatever it is elevates our level of serotonin. They said the longest lasting increases come by living and creating and participating in something you feel is a more meaningful life. Working for the good of the whole, elevating your consciousness. So we've come a long way in this last year. Bumpy roads. We've done some really remarkable things with our Rose Cottage and continuing to tithe to different nonprofits in our community. Our lights are still on. We've had some very horrible times too. We've seen people around our planet drop over. This virus is very impactful on all of humanity. But as we look at humanity, these come over and over again. Depressions come over and over again. And we humans, and actually all creatures, have this amazing ability to be resilient, to adapt, to get through all this. So I hope all of us can find our own unique way to deal with this new normal, with our masks and our social distancing, and our limited travel, all the fun things, all the warm and fuzzy things, and find a deeper, more meaningful satisfaction that elevating our consciousness, living more meaningful lives, engaging in the things that are important to our lives, and laughing whenever we get a chance. Look for the humor. Look for the beauty. I venture to say that every one of us has spent a lot of time on our phones or our computers. How many times have you spent, how much time have we spent admiring the beauty of the creation of the roses out front or in your yard? Jean works her tail off, keeping all of our roses and flowers looking beautiful. Pay a little more attention to the beauty and the organic, the living. Plenty of time to look at our devices. I'm gonna close. Yeah, I've got time. I'm telling you a story that I think is humorous. It's true. This last Wednesday was my youngest granddaughter's 15th birthday. and they recently moved back to Ohio. They lived here for about 6 years. So I called her Wednesday morning and wished her a happy birthday, and we were talking and laughing, and she's turning into quite a young lady. Her name is Deja, and Deja has always been precocious is one word you could use. She has, according to her, never been wrong in her life. And being responsible or answering to the consequences of her actions doesn't exist in her reality. There are no such things as consequences. So she's actually maturing and leaving a little bit of that behind, transcending that attitude. But about, I don't know, not long after they moved here, probably 5 years ago or something, that would make her about 10 years old. It seems that my two grandsons had been invited to go on a 4-day camping trip with their neighbors. And I had planned on driving down to Las Vegas to see my oldest daughter. And I told my youngest daughter, Deja's mother, that I was going. She said, well, why don't you take the girls and give me a break? I thought, well, let me ponder that. So I called my oldest daughter. I said, what if I bring the girls? She said, oh, bring them, Daddy. That'd be a hoot. So I called the girls and I said, do you want to go to Las Vegas, Grandpa? Can we eat at the all-you-can-eat places that we heard about in the casinos? I said, well, sure. Can we go swimming? Sure. So I picked them up and off to Vegas we went. We left early the next morning. We get into Vegas that evening and went to my oldest daughter's house and went to an all-you-can-eat place. And the girls had never seen a casino before. They'd never been to Las Vegas. And, wow. And they decided to spend the night at Aunt Shauna's. And I stay where I usually stay at Arizona Charlie's out on Boulder Highway by Sam's Town. So the next morning, Shauna had to work, so she dropped the girls off. And I gave them, we went to Blueberry Hill for breakfast, important. And then we had a tour of downtown Las Vegas, the old downtown and then the Strip. We had a late lunch at the Hard Rock Cafe, and then we went back to my motel, and the girls went swimming. Then Shauna got off work, and we had dinner. Same as the night before. The girls spent the night with Aunt Shauna. Well, Shauna had to work had the next day off, and she and Kiera decided they should go shopping. Well, Deja called me. She said, Grandpa, can I go swimming instead of going shopping? I said, sure. So Shauna dropped her off at my motel. She was in the pool by 10 o'clock. We spent all day at the pool. They have food service and beverage service at the pool. I read a book, and she swam all day. And again that night, we went to Sam's Town for an all-you-can-eat. And the next morning, we were going to leave. Shauna had to go back to work, so she dropped the girls off early in the morning at my motel. And Deja said, Grandpa, I want to go swimming for a couple hours before we leave. And I said, no, can't do that. We got to head home. And she started getting real huffy. And I said, besides that, young lady, you know, yesterday you were in that pool all day. We had lunch by the pool. You had 2 or 3 Shirley Temples and a couple bottles of water. I said, never once did you go to the bathroom. And I know you were naughty in the pool. You tinkled in the pool, didn't you? And she got looking real defensive. She said, Grandpa, don't you know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? Picked up her backpack, her little suitcase, and went and got in the car. Life, kids, family, joy, beauty, and seeing what beautiful seed, plants, flowers come from the seeds we plant when the intent is for the good of the whole. And so it is.